ああ、ああ、mm, mm, 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 mm. Hey guys, if you're here, I didn't expect it to come out just now, so I'm still getting set up. I thought I had about an hour longer. Okay, should be fine. Let me open up chat so I can see you guys for a second. Uh, okay, nice. Yeah, I can see you guys. Hi guys. Okay, let me pull up the list right now. Da, 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 da. Okay, let's get straight into this. We will go back and forth as people hop in. Um, we're here. Okay, so maybe I can make my face a little bit bigger. Hey guys, how you guys doing? Hey, good morning, good morning. Okay, I'm sure we're gonna go over this many, many times, but to just go over what has happened. As of 7 minutes ago, I was eating my dinner, and I saw that they announced something completely unrelated. Thought, oh, it's coming out at 8. Refreshed, saw the ban list is up. So I choked on my food, got here as quickly as I could to now see that we have a new way of banning cards. Blue Purple Luffy is not banned. Purple 8-cost Katakuri is not banned. 9 Mom are not banned. But the combination of Blue Purple Luffy and Purple Katakuri and the combination of Blue Purple Luffy and 9 Mom is no longer allowed. This means that you can play these cards in Purple Katakuri, but you can't play them in Blue Purple Luffy, which I think is a fair change, but I do think it's a bit overkill because if they were to kill just one of these cards in Blue Purple Luffy, he would be knocked down a tier or two, and he'd still be playable. With both of these gone, I think the deck might be dead. It's going to be very difficult for the deck to play defensively with both of these gone. Then, one more ban, as people were starting to speculate. Blue Nami is also randomly hitting the ban list after basically not being playable for a long time, seeing a bit of results in PRB02, but then seeing a completely broken card revealed in OP13. This card is probably banned in anticipation. But the first time that we've had cards unbanned, Sakazuki as well as Kabaji are unbanned. Sakazuki, I think, is completely justifiable in taking him off the ban list, simply because in this meta now, with things like Green Zoro, with a lot of things like 9 Sanji into X, Luffy Taro into Y, there's so many cards that can spread your board out very quickly, and Sakazuki just being a 4-life leader that now has a very similar effect to Ime, he may not even be strong anymore in this meta. The one thing I'm surprised about, though, is Kabaji, because Kabaji, he would have rotated out soon anyways, but I feel like I guess they might as well bring it back now that Nami's gone. But yeah, so Sakazuki and Kabaji are back. If this was one set earlier, maybe Sakazuki would do a lot better, but my main fear is that Zoro seems like a terrible matchup. But is there I mean, to be fair, whenever they've banned a leader, they have printed out a really bad promo that's replaced it. So if anyone gets information on if there's a promo Nami leader or something, then oh wait, hold on. Sorry, I just read this. Here it is. Sorry. Yeah, so because we'll go through their logic and reasoning after this. But because the leader's getting banned, they are adding a new leader, P117 Nami, that you can now use. So let's go over what this does. Let me just read it first because I'm bad at translating on the spot. ルール上自分の特徴、イーストブルーを持つカードしか入れることができず、自分のデッキがゼロ枚になった敗北の代わりに勝利する。トン1枚。Huh, okay. Actually, this is somewhat playable. So, per the rules or beyond the rules, you can't put you can only put cards that have the type East Blue in your deck. And if you hit 0 cards in your deck, you're going to win, same as before. And, I don't know. Yeah, and then the Dong effect is kind of the same. So now that means that you just can't put in anything that aren't East blue cards in your deck, which is fair. I think that still means you can use Kaya, but you can't use things like Impel Down All Stars. You can't put in the new Otama, for example. I kind of like this change. I don't think that she's worse than she was before, and she was barely playable before. So not that she's going to do anything, but like usually with these promo leaders that they've printed, they've like completely gutted it, and at least they've kind of kept the essence of it, just not letting her do some things that were kind of unintended. Which is kind of fair. Yeah. Yeah. For people who are just coming in, sorry if I'm missing some of your messages. I'll make my chat a little bit bigger on the side for me. Yeah. Yeah. So none of these cards are banned, but they're banned in combination of each other. Unfortunately, this means that as Wooperly, you can't put in either Katakuri nor Nine Mom into your deck, which is uh disappointing because I wish they would at least leave one of them because then I could do something with Blue Purple Luffy. But now Blue Purple Luffy without either of these defensive cards, I struggle to see how it can maybe have a footing in the meta. But I still think that Blue Purple Luffy as a leader, his leader effect lends him to have very strong synergies in the future. We also know that nine Sanji is going to be permanently in rotation thanks to it having a manga alt art now. But so maybe in the future, Blue Purple Luffy would become a bit stronger. But as of now, in the OP12 metagame for you guys, OP13 for us, this is a huge nerf, and you probably won't see this deck played, which is unfortunate because I would have hoped that they would have left it at least as like a B tier leader. But at least the leader isn't banned. A leader that was banned though was Nami. I think that I'm not sure how many people are aware of this. Yeah, no Gungam Giant, no Hody bans. I'll talk about my opinions on that either, but as well after. But I think that it's fair to do so. I think it's a bit scary that they didn't touch Green Purple Luffy at all. But I mean, I think these are relatively fair. It's better than the last bans that they had. I am just disappointed that they didn't touch some more leaders. What was I going to do? Right. Blue Purple Luffy cannot heal anymore. Healing is just a very yellow mechanic that they randomly gave to purple when they made the purple yellow pudding. It's a bit of an oversight to make that generic because the leaders that actually end up using it were Purple Luffy and Blue Purple Luffy. So understandable that that card's gone. I'm surprised that they also took away my boy. Well, not really my boy. I never really played that card. But Eikas Katakuri as well. This Otama, for people who don't know, let me see if I can get English translation here. If you have 3 life or less, it's a 2k counter. You draw 2 and trash 1. So people who think that this Nami ban is strange, this is why. It's because you have 8 Kaya now, and one of them is objectively stronger. Thankfully, though, this card is Wano typing, which means that with the new promo Nami leader, which is the same effect, except that now you can only put in East Blue type characters into your deck, a lot more reasonable. Nami players devastated, Blue Purple Luffy players devastated, everyone else is happy. I get this into like a nice... Yeah, I can put this into a little Photoshop document so you guys can see it a bit better. But yeah, let's go over the reasoning. Sakazuki は注目と代わりにゲームをその逆転となる想定でした。Okay. 私がそれで中盤に弱点を埋めることが可能となり、yeah. Okay. So basically, what they're saying is that when they originally made the OP11 Blue Purple Luffy, their idea was that he would be a deck that's exceptionally weak in the early game and become stronger later on, and there would be clear weaknesses that you can exploit and attack. However, due to these two cards, because you could play them so quickly after ramping, you are able to mitigate a lot of that weaknesses, whether it's healing and getting rid of a character or just setting up a permanent blocker and attacker. So therefore, they decided to get rid of them as a pair. Which I think is fair. I just wish they left one of them. Then for Blue Nami, let's see what their justification is, because I feel like this is disappointing considering that the deck would have cycled out anyways relatively soon. Getting a lot of notifications. People are just freaking out the ban list. That's fine. Okay. So they the milling strategy where you don't actually like interact with the board and you just play solitaire with yourself and try to get your life down as quickly as possible was stronger than they expected, and because of Nami's existence, it was difficult for them to print out cards that drew cards. And we've seen that, I guess, in anticipation of this Nami being banned, they finally started doing so. We had the Marco in PRB02, which on KO would draw 2 cards. We have the Otama, which draws 2 and trashes 1, and also the Yamato, which draws 2 cards. So taking into account these 3 cards, which, to be fair, you guys don't have yet, but we in Japan will be getting in a few days. This ban was honestly necessary, but I feel like the play around would be to just not print these cards to begin with, or lock them to something like Ace. Making them generic 3 life or less makes it so that it's good for a lot of other leaders, but also just makes it so you have to do a really awkward thing banning a leader that would have become unplayable in 6 months anyways. Um, then hold on. I actually did it say anything about? Oh, okay. So these bans are from the 30th in Japan. I don't know what that would be for the West, but it's something. So that means the reason why it's the 30th probably is because we have an event in Japan that's on, I believe, the 30th or the 31st. Yeah, August 30th. So 10 days from now, at least in Japan. Perhaps for you guys it'll be slightly different, but in Japan we have a tournament on the 31st. So it would have been very awkward if this was like from the start of September. So I think that's the only reason why this is. Oh, that's a good point. Um, yeah, the promo is block 4. So in a way, they've given Nami an extra life cycle, but they've just made it much more difficult to actually use to actually meet her condition to win the game. The nice thing about that, though, let's check what East Blue cards exist, because I have not really looked into that typing for a while. Does this even work on the official thing? Because yeah, I know that. No, it's not perfect. But I know that there's some cards, like in OP03, like this is F, which on attack trashes 7 cards, or the Belmare, which has a similar sort of effect, and of course the Rush Usopp. All these cards are East Blue. So basically, I think that it incentivizes Navi to play the way that Bandai intended them to 2 years ago. Um, which is nice, but there's a reason why people are playing Solitaire Nami. It's because it's stronger. So at least for now, we don't have to worry about Nami. But maybe somewhere 3 years down the line, it will be a problem. Because now that it's block 4, it means that it's going to be usable again, until 2029, I believe. So if you guys are still playing that long, maybe we'll see Nami come back some way or another. Yeah, but I think generally the point of these promo leaders is to make them kind of useless, as we've seen with like the old Sakazuki and the Law. The funny thing is we have a promo Sakazuki that replaced the Sakazuki, and now this guy's coming back. Okay. Oh, sorry, yeah. For people who missed when I read the promo card, you can only put in East Blue type characters into your, or type cards into your deck, and it has otherwise the exact same effect. If you get 2 0 cards, instead of losing, you win the game, and then Dong on your leader. If you attack the opponent's leader and they take damage, then you can trash 1 card from the top of your life, or from your deck. So it's exactly the same, it's just you can only put in East Blue cards to fix the problems that they made. Okay. I need to think if Blue Purple Luffy could be playable. I thought I was completely intending to cook up and figure out Blue Purple Luffy if only 9 Mom was banned or if only Katakuri was banned. Actually, honestly, I don't even run Katakuri in my OP12 list, but not that that actually matters. Because 9 Mom is still very core. Losing both of these cards just hurts its survivability like crazy. So it's very awkward to actually play the aggressive thing. Yeah. So where would Sakazuki fit into this meta? If we were to pull up a generic tier list. Oops, sorry. Yeah. The Nami promo is cards, I believe, not characters. So just yep, card. So you have to put in East, like your entire deck needs to be East Blue, which is a very important distinction. Okay. Here's the thing that keeps people interacting. Type leader. What leaders? I'm going to do like all of the leaders, but just throwing in the leaders that are like close to the top of the meta right now. Sort by Luffy, you'll probably find a bunch of them. I can't rank all of them because I don't have like full knowledge of all of them, especially like how they interact in the meta. I can almost put in some of these if Blue Purple Luffy's gone. Body. This I feel like this isn't really the time to be speculating, but Zoro Sanji could be a decent leader in general. Rayleigh. I don't even know what other leaders are. I think currently Nami as well as Blue Purple Luffy are both dead, but with more cards facilitating it, as we've seen, kind of they were printing a new promo law that helps the law leader, then maybe they can come back just because the effects are still threatening. It's just that the support is no longer there. Nami's kind of interesting to talk about. Kuzan's something to talk about. Yellow Kid's kind of seen some traction. Green Yellow Law. Yeah, if people are just coming into the chat and don't really know what's been banned, if people can help them get caught up, I'd be very grateful. Sorry that I keep trying to bounce back and forth. This isn't going to be a comprehensive. Oh yeah, let's put Sakazuki in there too, because he's no longer banned. For now, I don't want to make this like an extensive list, so for now, let's just look through these if you guys don't mind. Just move my thing up here. So, before the bans, this was a pretty... Oh, we're looking... think about OP12. Hold on. OP12, no PRB02. I need to go back into that mode. There's... very, very roughly, this is kind of what OB12 was without bans, generally kind of ordered. It was more like these three at the top with GP Luffy sneaking here and there. But Blue Purple Luffy was by far the best deck. So, what's going to happen now that we have officially, as of August 30th, 10 days from now in Japan? I don't know for you guys have to wait for English confirmation of that. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I'll put Buggy and Blackbeard in there. What would happen if... He's not called Blackbeard. Marshall D. Teach. Personally, I think that they're like somewhere around here-ish together, but it's kind of hard to rank these mid-tier leaders. I can't put in all of them, guys. I think I'll put in NL though, because he is worth talking about. But NL currently is pretty bad. Smoker before PRB buffs is a bit weaker. Put him like here. Or her? Not sure. Them. Okay, so Blue Purple Luffy no longer has access to 8 cost category, no longer has access to 9 cost Mom. Nami completely gone. Not that she was extremely meta to begin with. Sakazuki now back, and Kabaji now back. And also, by the way, this Kabaji's typing is Buggy Pirates, not East Blue. So it doesn't even mean that it makes this promo Nami stronger. For people who haven't seen this promo Nami, it's the same as Nami, word for word, except it also has the clause now that you can only put East Blue type cards into your deck. Now, let's look at this. Blue Purple Luffy is at the top because essentially these two cards. There are some more aggressive versions of the list that don't run Katakuri, but essentially every single list will run at least 3 9-cost Mom, and the third or fourth largely comes down to how much aggro is within the meta. Blue Purple Luffy without 9-cost Mom is just a 3-cost or 3 life leader, which is, as Bandai intended, but for Blue Purple Luffy, who has become accustomed to having 4, even 5 life in a game, this is pretty devastating. The one way that you play around not having Dynamom is by having very big blockers in the 8-cost Katakuri. And as both of these defenses have been erased from the game, I don't see this deck being good anymore. Which is very sad, because if only one of them was banned, I think that if only Katakuri was banned, he'd still be an A tier. If 9-Mom was banned, he'd still be B tier, but with both of them gone, we're going to need to wait for some cards that'll actually make him good again. So he's gone, which means that we now have to shift what would be considered the top of meta. Of these three, the biggest issue for them was that they lost to Blue Purple Luffy. Red Rayleigh was maybe had the better matchup into Blue Purple Luffy, but it was still slightly losing into Blue Purple Luffy. Green Zoro has a thing where like he beats almost every single deck except Blue Purple Luffy he hard loses to, so this deck would likely go up in value. Green Purple Luffy has a similar sort of thing, except he has a little bit more of a difficult time against these two. For that reason, I think that Green Purple Luffy would be slightly lower, as he is one of the decks that could contend with Blue Purple Luffy, but not necessarily contend as well with these top decks. But with one of his, I wouldn't say good, but playable matchups gone, just because these guys have lost matchups that are a lot worse for them, it seems like these people would be much higher in value. If you want me to put Betty on the list, I think Betty, like basically the main reason why Betty was played before was that she beat Blue Purple Luffy, and in OP12 she loses her best matchup and gains 2 very bad matchups. So Betty would be down here, I would likely think. The Don Quixote Pirates Blue Purple Luffy list maybe has a chance, but it doesn't really fix the issues with Blue Purple Luffy now having very little defensive tools. Even if you played an aggressive version of Blue Purple Luffy, you generally put in 9-Bomb because the heal would just stall so much time that you can get to the late game, and just not having the assurance that you're going to reach that late game where you're actually going to be powerful is going to be kind of difficult for this deck. Still though, I guess you can use Gum Gum Giant still. So I wouldn't say that he's completely dead, but he's in a much rougher spot. Of these two decks, I think that if you're in OP12, you thought you were going to play Blue Purple Luffy, you don't know what to play right now, I would basically pick. We'll maybe look at these. Maybe there's something good that's hiding in here. But Rayleigh and Zoro are just very solid decks if Blue Purple Luffy is completely gone, because at least as of now, it looks like Blue Purple Luffy is completely gone. But in the Rayleigh versus Zoro head-to-head matchup, I believe that Rayleigh wins. So therefore, I would put Rayleigh above Zoro. Zoro has a very bad matchup to Blue Purple Luffy, but has a very good matchup into a lot of these other decks that people like to play, like Buggy, like Teach, like Green Purple Luffy. So how would Green Yellow do? Green Yellow is another leader that had a decent matchup into Blue Purple Luffy, so I can see him taking a bit of a hit. And he also can get run over by Rayleigh. Probably this deck, I can't actually order them within the tiers currently, but he would probably fall down a little bit in priority. Still a good deck because he hasn't been hit, of course, but just the difference in matchups means that the meta would probably shift. Hold on. Red Green Smoker. I feel like, I mean, I always have bias for Red Green Smoker. I just feel like the deck is in general very good. And in PRB02, it gets another very solid card. in the 6-cost law. This one. Uh, Basically hard to remove character, and on attack would minus 2000 power one of the opponent's characters. If you have this card, then I think that Smoker very easily goes into the higher tier. But because this card doesn't exist currently for you guys, it being a slash type character that also has Punk Hazard makes it very searchable. The curve for Smoker going second is a bit weaker. I should say significantly weaker. So it's hard for me to justify putting him higher, but I don't think that he's bad by any means. Let me put myself. Oops. Corner better, maybe? No, I'll leave myself there. Yeah, okay. For people just storming in, and I'm sorry to the people who have already been here from the very beginning. Yeah. Banlist is out. It's Blue Purple Luffy, or combination of Blue Purple Luffy and Katakuri, or Blue Purple Luffy and Nine Mom, as well as Blue Nami, the leader. And we have a promo Nami leader, which is the exact same text, except that you can no longer put in East Blue type, or you can only put in East Blue type cards into your deck. Sakazuki is unbanned, and Kabaji is unbanned. So, quick catch up. Buggy is another one of those decks which was relatively good into Blue Purple Luffy compared to the other decks that have to fight into Blue Purple Luffy. But in OP12, he has a couple of new matchups to consider. Red Rayleigh is one of the matchups that he would likely win. I don't think he would necessarily win it as hard as he would win against something like Bella Betty, but he is still probably likely slightly winning. But Green Zoro is probably one of the worst matchups that he's ever had, because any character that he plays is going to be immediately rested by Zoro's Tashigi and hit into, making it very difficult for Blue Buggy to actually set up his board and eventually get to the 10-cost Buggy, because Green Zoro is clearing your board and also hitting you, and Buggy simply doesn't have a means of dealing with that for the most part. There is technically one way that you can deal with that. So for you Buggy Copers, let's go through that. This 7-cost Buggy straight into this Kabaji means that you now have a 7-cost and a 5-cost, but this 5-cost can't be KO'd in battle, making it this is, I think, the only combo that's just immediately sticks to the board and creates 2 characters on the board, which makes Buggy have a chance in the Green Zoro matchup, but still a bit of a tricky matchup. So I think that this leader can easily be like anywhere in this range, depending on how many of these decks are around you. Um, yeah, basically everything down here I can't really order. So just, imagine that you can order them in your mind however you feel based on what I've been inputting. Black Teach. How's Black Teach? Mm, I'm not too well versed in Black Teach matchups, but Rayleigh and Zoro. Rayleigh is difficult. Zoro is slightly more playable, but it largely comes down to just how many times Zoro can hit you. And the answer is yes, Zoro can hit you very, very often. So both these matchups tend to be quite difficult. I would say that Black Teach is not necessarily stronger, not necessarily weaker. He just kind of exists. And I think that that's fair for a leader like this. Yellow Kid, though. Actually, Yellow Kid could be good. So Yellow Kid's actually a deck that he's maybe 50-50 into Blue Purple Luffy, maybe slightly losing, but he has a decent... Does he have a decent Zoro matchup? I don't remember. I don't remember his matchups too well. I remember talking to the person who got second place in Japanese regional about Yellow Kid matchups. I can't really rate this guy. I'm trying to see, yeah. Yeah, okay, sorry. If anyone knows Yellow Kid matchups a little bit better than me, then let me know, because let's look at Slave Arrow for a second. Someone in chat pointed that out. Sorry if I will miss a lot of your questions, unfortunately. But Slave Arrow is run in a lot of blue decks to be able to counter Green Zoro, because Green Zoro has a very unique stipulation in that you actually have to complete the combat to get the activate main off. This means that if you bounce back the character that Zoro is hitting, then they cannot get the activate main off, meaning that they can't get the second hit off, and you get to save the character. This would be good in basically any blue deck that can use it. Buggy's characters are generally all 5-cost or higher, which means that you would have to bounce a 4 to 5 cost or higher to actually be able to protect from the Zoro effect. And I thought that this would be good, but after trying it, you're still technically losing the character from the board. So while it does help the matchup a little bit, one, it's only good into blue purple Luffy, not blue purple Luffy, green Zoro because you don't want to bounce back your characters in other matchups. And two, bouncing back the character doesn't necessarily make the matchup winning; it just makes it a little bit less painful. So I don't necessarily love Slave Arrow in Buggy just to deal with Zoro, but it is an option if there's just an overwhelming amount of Zoro. Yeah, yeah. I would think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Some people here and there are saying that he beats Rayleigh Zoro. Like in my head, it feels like he should be able to beat these two because he has like fairly good defense, and also has the means of pushing back with things like the 8 cost Kid and things like the 4 cost Hawkins. If that's actually the case, though, then this could be like pretty solid pick. Oh, it's gone though. So actually, you guys can't play it anymore. Um, I don't know enough of its matchup to be able to confidently put it up here, but I'll put it in here. Slave Arrow, East Blue. Slave Arrow's not East Blue. You might be thinking about Snake Dance though, which is unfortunately Kucha Pirates, so no longer usable in the new Nami. But this is run in Blue Nami. Oh, sorry, you're thinking of Blue Yellow Nami. Yeah, no, in Blue Yellow Nami, Slave Arrow is very good. Which I guess we can talk about next. Blue Yellow Nami is a deck that I think her only bad matchup was Blue Purple Luffy, but that was still somewhat fine thanks to the 7 cost Olden that exists. This 7 cost Olden um, gave you a means of closing out the game against a deck that had just way too much tankiness. But this not being the case anymore means that Blue Yaonami probably has higher stocks. The other issue for this deck is that Green Zoro hits you like a truck, and your leader effect giving you plus 2k doesn't actually help you that much when he's hitting you for like 8 minimum every single turn from the start of the game, and also eventually hitting you for 9, 11, 12, and multiple times at that. So Blue Yellow Nami still likely going to struggle into Green Zoro, but Blue Yellow Nami is a deck that's very versatile in what you can put in the deck. So I'm sure that, with things like Slave Arrow, with things like I actually, if you guys saw my uh Nami video, which didn't end up doing too well. I don't know what it's called though. Oh, it's because I'm on blue. Narikabura Arrow. If you have 2 or less life, then you can give one of the opponent's leaders or character minus 1,000 power for the turn, which means that you can reduce both of Zoro's attacks by 3k, which is kind of cute if you're going for like a 1-0 Nami. So there are some things out there that can help you deal with this matchup, and now that you only need to tech for one matchup, I think that Blue Yellow Nami would actually come up a bit in tier, largely because it's very good into aggro, which is always going to be present, and also thanks to having access to things like Red Rock, thanks to having strong top end in the 8 cost Kid, 7 cost Olden, makes her a very solid pick. I can't actually rank these like in between tiers. Okay, yeah. I've ignored far too many messages asking about Shanks. So I'll put Shanks in here. Let's talk about Shanks. Shanks did very well in the most recent Japanese championship. I believe he got to the top 16 out of 180 something people, and this is of the people who are the best in Japan. I think that largely this comes down to a few cards. I don't remember if I saw his list. I might have saved it. Mm, see if I can find it quickly. Da-da-da-da-da. Give me 1 second, guys. Hunks- Okay. I feel like I saved the deck list somewhere. Okay, I can't find Shanks's deck list. But anyways, there's a new 4-cost Shanks, which exists as of OP12, which you guys are going to be getting very soon, which is... Oh, sorry. No, I haven't actually ordered these yet. So like Sakazuki and stuff, I haven't actually moved around yet. Um, This card is very nice for Shanks just because it makes him extremely tanky. A lot of red control decks would be able to use this card, but there just aren't very many red control decks. There's also, I don't know if the championship list was running it, but in PRB02, Lucky Roo also fixes up a lot of the issues that Shanks had, in that you would brick with too many high end, and you can now with this card replace that with some more filter and draw, because Shanks didn't really have many filter and draw mechanics. The one big thing, though, is that now because Blue Purple Luffy is gone, I don't think that you're required to run this 9-cost Shanks anymore, which was basically just a Blue Purple Luffy counter card. And because you don't have to run this card, that means that you can run more kind of like slower, potentially greedier lists with this Shanks, which you would have ran by default, but because you were forced to run this card to deal with Blue Purple Luffy, um, you couldn't really max them out. But now you can put in very strong cards like Rayleigh. I'm trying to remember, the championship list also ran this Kobe, which is quite a unique card, but just having more attacks and just being able to draw one card on attack makes it a little bit annoying for the opponent, and also gets rid of one of their low-cost blockers. Honestly, a lot of the new PRB cards were just really good for Shanks, and for that reason, he kind of popped up almost out of nowhere, but he is relatively good, surprisingly strong. So Shanks actually has been buffed quite significantly. I don't know if it's enough to deal with Red Zoro or Green Zoro, but I do think that he has a relatively good matchup into Red Rayleigh naturally. I would figure that because there is someone in Japan who was able to make the top 16 playing Red Shanks, that maybe he has like an okay matchup into this spread. I don't know where he would be, but I do think that he would be a fairly strong contender to come back now that Blue Purple Luffy is gone. Oh, sorry. I should have done this way earlier. Let me put this in the description for you guys. The link to the ban list. Da-da-da-da. Okay. It's in Japanese, but the pixels on the screen make an image that we're all familiar with. Um, so I can see Shanks actually being pretty good then. Green Bonnie though. Let me think about this. It's one of those things where, like, every time the meta shifts, Green Bonnie seems potentially good, but then there's, like, one random leader that'll just devastate it. I think that largely Green Bonnie's play rate will come down to how prevalent Red is as a deck. Um, for now, I would probably just need to kind of leave her here, because I think she largely is always going to be a meta answer, and without knowing exactly how the meta is going to settle, it's hard to tell. I think that if it's just these two top decks, she does tend to struggle a little bit into Rayleigh because he has very easy access into Mole Pistol, so her 8-cost kid doesn't work too well. But her leader effect still is good at slowing down the aggression, so it's not necessarily a bad matchup. Green Zoro, I forget which side wins, honestly. I heard that Bonnie wins this matchup, but that might be old information. I don't know enough about Bonnie to actually say too much. I saw someone ask about Eastern and Western meta because Buggy is much more common over there. The reason why Buggy was never popular in Japan is because we never had OP11 with the start decks. We only had OP12 with the start decks, and OP12 we already had Green Zoro, and Green Zoro completely devastates Buggy. There were a lot of people who were excited for Buggy, but just due to the matchup spread in OP12, it was just never really a thing. And even though Rayleigh's a good matchup, you're not necessarily only going to hit Rayleigh, so that's why Buggy just really tends to kind of struggle. Let's get Sakazuki out of F tier, because I'm afraid that people are going to walk in here and see that I put him as terrible. I think he might actually do well into Rayleigh, just because of how low in cost all this stuff is, so you can just do some Lucci stuff to get rid of their aggression before it happens, because Rayleigh's characters are like Bella Betty in a way, where they most of the time sit on the board one turn before attacking, unlike a deck like Red Zoro. That matchup may be closer, but Green Zoro, I think just Green Zoro has too many tools to be able to push over the opponent's uh, life without actually interacting with the board ever. So Sakazuki's main strength of actually being able to clear the opponent's board permanently is kind of useless against Green Zoro. I think that Green Zoro would likely be a better matchup. Red Rayleigh, I would say would be close, but obviously I haven't tested these matchups. Um, but a lot of the decks that can now put out multiple things per turn, like yeah, like Red Green Smoker's ability to play out the Smoker and Tashigi on 5 Dong, or like Green Purple Luffy, which I don't know if he's going to play Luffy Taro, but he might play Luffy Taro into Sanji Pudding, for example. There's also Green Yellow Law just being able to spawn 7 and 5 costs out of nowhere from his leader effect. There's a lot of new ways that decks have to spawn characters on the board that makes it difficult for Sakazuki to be able to clear the board. I do think he's playable though. Like, I won't say he's bad just because he still is Sakazuki, he still is the consistency king, and is likely just a straight upgrade over Lucci for the most part. For the most part. Just because the cards actually go through your hand and not just straight into your trash. Though they do have their differences. I can't really rate these too differently. But I would say that these sort of black control decks generally are struggling in the meta for the most part due to Blue Purple Luffy. But Sakazuki being a 4-life leader makes him struggle a little bit more. Lucci maybe has a bit more of a chance as a 5-life leader, which is weird to think about in this day and age. That Lucci is just better than Sakazuki. But I think that just the 5-life could be quite relevant from Lucci. But we'll have to see because there are some very powerful cards in blue. Kazan's not bad, is it, huh? Kazan's worst matchup was Blue Purple Luffy, but Kazan had an okay fightable matchup into these two because of how much defense he had. Kazan's probably pretty good. I'm not gonna order within this tier, but Kazan can outsurvive Rayleigh. Kazan can, if he gets his cards, outsurvive Zoro up until the point that he can start playing, fighting back with his 8-cost Garp into 7-cost Sakazuki. Green Purple Luffy is a terrible matchup though. Green Purple Luffy is potentially worse matchup than Blue Purple Luffy. So, although people are very excited for Kuzung, I'm not sold that he would actually be somewhere up here. But I do think that he'd probably be good. I think that he still loses to kind of explosively aggressive decks. He needs some time to get onto the board, and Rayleigh doesn't really give him that time. But thanks to things like Ice Block, which are, you know, there's way too many cards called Ice, aren't there? Ice Block, Pheasant Peck, which is, in a way, budget Gum Gum Giant, but still kind of Gum Gum Giant nonetheless. You're a little bit less susceptible to higher power attacks, and you're more susceptible to lots of very small chip attacks. I'll put him here because I don't want to unbalance this too much, but I feel like he's very close to being down here. Um, Sanji. Yeah. Yeah, the ban list is in the comments, but I'll show it one more time because we have been talking for a little bit without showing it. Combination of leader and 8-cost Katakuri, combination of Blue Purple Luffy and 9-cost Mom and Blue Nami are gone. Sakazuki is back. Kabaji is back. And in replacement of this Nami, we now have a new Nami, which is exactly the same, except that you can only put in East Blue type cards into your deck. As a whole, all of these decks have kind of stepped up a little bit. I don't know how Enel versus Zoro goes. Oh no. No, that's a good matchup for Enel, isn't it? Hmm. Uh, Enel might not be bad. Just as the control deck to replace Blue Purple Luffy. There's a lot of control decks, like we were talking about, like Red Shanks, like Black Lucci, who have kind of been gated by the fact that they're just objectively worse than Blue Purple Luffy. But NL has a pretty good matchup into these. Yellow Kid, I do not know who wins that matchup, honestly. Green Purple Luffy, if you can manage to stabilize up until 10 Dong, then eventually you'll be able to win that out. So Red Green Smoker, kind of similar thing, except Red Green Smoker has a bit more aggression, which could be difficult for NL to deal with. Nami and Blue and or Nami and Yellow Enel are relatively similar types of decks. I don't know exactly where I'd really rank these, but I do think that yellow control might be back, which sounds like a nightmare. I don't necessarily think that he would be objectively better than these other two because his main gimmick is that he just survives longer, and Yellow Kid as well as Blue Yellow Nami have different tools that they can use at their disposal and also survive for very long. I don't think that he would be better than these two, unfortunately, but he's pretty good. Huh. Actually, Yellow Control kind of coming back with Blue Purple Luffy being dead would be interesting. Hmm. Huh. Yeah, sorry. I've seen some of you guys talking about Red Zoro, but I wanted to kind of talk about what was here before we added more stuff. Red Zoro beats Rayleigh, beats Zoro, which is already enough, in my opinion, to put it up here. This might also, honestly, with this many decks that supposedly beat these decks, be an argument to kind of pull these down. But I think that it's kind of hard to speculate that far. Because if you speculate that, like, because there's so many decks that beat Red Rayleigh and Green Sorrow, therefore they're down here, then you have to think about then what's going to actually end up being up here instead, and that's like too many layers deep to actually consider. I think that generally this is going to be the core of OP12 at the beginning, and then many people are going to choose these such decks to actually try to counter it. Red Zoro has a terrible matchup into NL, terrible matchup into Nami. I have no idea about the Kazang matchup. Smoker probably beats Green Purple Luffy. I also have no idea. But generally, case as old as time, or Tail as old as time, loses to Yellow Control, but is one of the better aggro decks. So he's probably good. I cannot rate him within this tier, but I think that he's probably quite solid. Now, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with having no S tier decks, but I think that I'm not necessarily saying that these are like Z tier decks like Blue Purple Luffy would have been potentially in OP12 had he not have been hit. I just think that these would probably be the core of OP12, and then it's just how do people respond to that. Especially think that because OP12 is a new set and people are excited for the new cards, there is going to be a disproportionate play rate for these decks. So there's going to also be a high play rate for their counters, similar to how you guys saw a ton of Bella Betty in your OP11 metagame, with Blue Purple Luffy being what's supposed to be one of the strongest decks. But yeah, there's a lot of variables to actually consider. I think that Red Rayleigh as a whole seems like the deck to beat just because he's generally solid. Hi, Mikhail. Thank you for the €2. And hi again. 'Cause I see you honestly a lot in here. I very much appreciate it. Um, Red Rayleigh seems like the deck to beat just because he generally has very few bad matchups because he can just push his agenda, push it very well, finish the game very quickly. But there are a lot of decks in here that do beat Rayleigh, so doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be untouchable, which is the sign of a healthy meta. Yep. Sakazuki is unbanned. Harugara? Harugara. Um, don't have enough data on Karigara to actively or actually be able to rank him. Let me kind of clean this up a little bit. I don't necessarily think that T should be that good. He could be, I will say. This is assuming that this is the top meta, but as soon as people start playing these yellow control decks to beat these, then Teach would come up. So although I'm putting Teach down here now, this is a very temporary C tier because he likely can come up here. I think that oh, it looks like a kind of fun meta. The thing is, like OP12 in Japan kind of sucked, but PRB02 in Japan was really fun. But your OP12 seems like it'll be at the very least very interesting. I have to be honest, I've never fought a Colby in my life, so I can't comment on his matchups, but it seems like he would be good into Rayleigh for sure. I have no idea how Green Zoro would go. The thing is, Green Zoro, I don't know how many people have actually played against it, but Green Zoro is kind of like the gatekeeper, where he does his one thing, where he plays Tashigi, hits you for 8 twice, he plays Mihawk, he plays another Tashigi or something, he hits you for 8 twice, and then he just keeps hitting you with so many big numbers that it becomes a bit overwhelming. And if your deck can't deal with that, then you will just lose in like 5 turns, and if your deck can, then you just win. So it's very polarizing, and there's a lot of things where in OP12, the blue-purple Luffy counters weren't allowed to play the game because they would lose to Green Zoro. So now that one of those factors is gone and Green Zoro is still alive, you have to kind of figure out how he would play out into some of these. Honestly, I can see with some of these decks that could potentially come up to beat them, then he could kind of drop down, but early meta, yeah. Hard to really say. That's for you guys. um, for me though, Emu S tier every day. Emu's so strong. Kobe struggles into Zoro. I would kind of think so too. Just I feel like for the most part, Kobe is like Yamato. I see a lot of people asking about Yamato, but sorry, Zoro's like Yamato, where he's very good into leaders that have minimal defense, particularly 4-life leaders and the such. Yamato, I can't rank Yamato. We're gonna need to get. Let me shoot Fidelio TCG a message if he wants to come on very suddenly, and then we'll see. But I can't comment on Yamato because I've never played that deck before. I've seen it here and there, and I see it do well every now and then, but I can't really comment on its matchups. So I'm sorry, I have to put that back. But I'll send a message to some people, see if anyone wants to join in. Yeah. Purple Luffy? Let me think about Purple Luffy. Purple Luffy loses hard to these two. Purple Luffy does well into the counters to these. So you could potentially, I am very much basing my opinions on these two just being at the top and how do people deal with these. But what's likely going to happen is that we're going to end up having something like a triangle meta, where it'll be something like, um, hmm, I don't want to exactly lose this, but we'll just hypothetically make a triangle meta. A beats B, A beats C. I don't really like doing these because they're never perfect. They never work out too well. But just as like a general sort of idea, you have like what was the deck we were just talking about? I'm completely blanking. I'm completely blanking. But you have something like this where like assuming that these cards these guys are at the best at the top, then these cards will end up being good. And if these guys end up becoming good, overwhelming share in the meta, then these cards end up being good. And then you have a bit of a cycle where it goes over and over again. Forget which card we were talking about specifically, but that's kind of what I would see eventually things settling to. C beats. Oh yeah, C beats B. My bad. Yeah, it's hard to actually say how the meta will end up settling, just because you guys haven't even had anything to really work with yet. I wonder if you guys had OP12 if you'd have the same meta as us, because I remember that the West doesn't really love Blue Purple Luffy as much as the East did. Blue Purple Sanji as a deck, hard loses to Zoro. Rayleigh is playable based on your build, which you can probably tech more towards that. Zoro as a matchup being terrible makes the deck pretty difficult. Unfortunately, one of the nice things about Sanji was that it could fight into Blue Purple Luffy, but now with that matchup gone, I can't see this deck really breaking into the top with this many very powerful control decks in the meta. But I can still see it being decent. For now, I'm just going to put it down here because the Green Zoro matchup I tried to crack, that was a nightmare. Yeah. Yeah, is especially early meta, so people don't know what to play. A lot of people end up playing aggro decks, and I will say, what's that name? What's the name of that thing? Uh, I know I think it's like Gum Gum something. Oh, Karubarin. I don't know what it's called in English. Jetto, これ. You can place one of the opponent's original 3-cost or less characters to the bottom of their deck, and that would be really good into aggro. It just depends. If it's in aggro-heavy meta, then Sanji can do very well because this is basically just free with your leader effect. But if there's a bunch of things in the meta, especially Green Zoro, then this deck would struggle a lot. Well, I think basically it's very rough. None of these are ordered within their tiers, so you can just literally put them wherever you want. But I feel like, you know, most of these decks should have a shot within the meta. I would imagine that the focus would be on here, and then basically I would say it's just, do you want to play Red Rayleigh or do you want to counter it? That's what I would think would be the best deck. But I don't know how the meta will end up developing just because there's so many different control decks that can come back with Blue Purple Luffy being gone. Um, oh my god. Everyone's asking about so many different decks. I can't go over every single one. I'm very sorry. Um, I do think Karugata is probably not bad. He still will struggle into things like Zoro because he needs time to actually set up his board to be able to make his attacks, and Zoro doesn't really give people time. Red Rayleigh as well. Deck's still probably decent, just going to struggle a little bit into some of the higher tier stuff, unfortunately. I think that Karugata is pretty... He has a lot of potential, though. Oh, sorry. The thing is, I should specify though, if you can get enough life heal off with Karagata, you can out-sustain decks like Rayleigh, but if you can't manage to find them off of your search, then you can struggle. I think that Karagata could be good, but it largely comes down to the meta because he seems like the sort of deck that would be kind of mid-rangey, and once you get to the late game, you're kind of going to struggle into some of these slower decks. Purple Black Luffy was one of the decks that... I'll put in Purple Luffy as well. Oh, Purple Luffy was the other thing for the triangle meta, right? That you'd put down here, where it's good into these sorts of yellow control decks, but struggles into these things. Purple Luffy, it largely comes down to the... It comes down to the triangle. Well, this is going to be confusing, but I think that there's a lot of decks where if the meta goes a certain way, then they're going to be very good, but if they don't, then they might struggle a bit. I feel mean putting Sanji in... Actually, Sanji's a bit of a triangle deck too. Because if he has a lot of aggro decks, or if there's one specific type of deck that he needs to tech for, then he can tech for it very well, but it's just very hard for him to tech for all the different types of decks. The other Luffy, Purple Black Luffy, had one of its main strengths... I can't believe we ended up actually going over all these. This was supposed to be like a 5-minute segment. One of the main strengths was that he could beat Blue Purple Luffy relatively consistency, especially when he was going first, by rushing to a 6-cost and playing a character that makes his leader 7,000 power and just hitting a lot from there. Green Zoro is a very bad matchup. Red Rayleigh, I don't know. The issue is that because Green Zoro has Tashigi, which... Oh, oops. I could make this even more confusing by just putting a triangle in there. Yeah, Japanese keyboard, you can put in a bunch of things like that. But yeah, Tashigi, because it can rest a 6-cost or less, makes it so that basically all of the characters that you play off of Purple Black Luffy are in range of being hit, and he doesn't have enough... Yeah, it's kind of a delta tier. He doesn't have enough counter to deal with some of these decks. He might be able to survive against Rayleigh with the 7,000 power line. I haven't been able to test that deck. But the Green Zoro matchup is very difficult, which is why you haven't seen this deck at all in Japan. Unfortunately, I don't see the deck being very good. I feel mean putting it in F tier. I feel mean putting Blue Purple Luffy in F tier as well, but it's tricky to actually put everything in some place. Yeah. Ma, I think that don't take the ranking in between these tiers too seriously. It's very speculative. Yeah, unfortunately, Koala lost her one and only good matchup, and Green Zoro is a very bad matchup for her. But Red Black Sabo, I think, is very good, so you have that to look forward to. Ma, um, build a Sakazuki list? I could try. Okay, maybe let's do that. I think we've talked enough about this stuff. Sorry if I didn't get to your leader. It's there's a bottomless pit of leaders that you can talk about. Blue, black. Start by looking at navy cards. Have there been any new cards that have been released? Mm-mm. Rage is probably not bad. Yeah. So Flamingo would maybe be back if he got Jinbei back, but that's something you need to bring up with Bandai. Okay. There is actually a card that I saw from last set, Bufu which would honestly be pretty good in Sakazuki. I don't know how many of that card you put in, but it is something. What would Sakazuki look like? I'm just trying to think of all of the general cards that he used to play, then kind of build from there. You run Tempest Kick? You probably have enough. Cards in trash. What's Inugami Guden called in English? Inugami Dogfire. Hound Blaze. Dogfire. Okay. I wonder if you still run Borsellino. I think it would come down to meta. Borsellino's maybe not bad. Kyros is also not bad. I don't know which one will end up being better. It depends if you have more 6 or 5s in the meta, but it seems like generally there's more 5s in the meta than 6s, so Borsellino would still probably be better. Amano Murakumo. Yeah, brand new is a good card. Just see what navy cards exist. Ooh, Sengoku can only play navy characters. Maybe not yet, but Sengoku is an interesting card. Kazan sounds kind of like a maybe, but we can think about that. Rook. Hold on. Sorry if I'm missing your stuff, guys. There's a lot of things. What's the ACOS Scarp again? Isn't that you need like a 9 cost on board to get rid of something? Pretty sure, yeah. I assume you're not talking about this one. I think this condition might be a bit tricky to meet for a deck like Sakazuki. I just saw a pretty good. Oh yeah, Brook. Of course, Brook. Brook for sure would go in. Um, trying to find the justification for going towards blue and black. The sword stuff. Hold on, what are this? I don't think there's that many. Yeah, there aren't that many sword cards in. Oh, interesting. This. Oh no, no, sorry. That's just I'm in the Widow sword. I don't think there's that many sword cards in black. 7 costs. Oh yeah, 7 costs Teach and Jack and stuff. I wonder which one would end up being better. Actually, it probably comes down to the meta, but I assume that if we're looking at the other things, then the 7 cost Jack would be worse than the Teach. Maybe Teach would probably go in. Teach is probably just better than things like Borsellino back in the day. But it does come down to the sort of cost reduction. You could even, if you're afraid of not having enough cost reduction, you could put in a card like this. Now, Houndblaze is not banned, actually. Yeah, you could probably put in Gravity Blade. Ooh. Oh, hold on. You're right. Yeah, we did have some good cards. And like this card also exists too. There's even the oh wait, there's so many searchers, aren't there? But the thing is, what are we searching into? Because like there's no really good top end that we really want to find, but there is a ton of ways to find them. What if actually, sorry, I might have looked at the wrong thing. Guy said before 8 cost Scarp. What if there is a good target? Alright, give me a second to think about this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Garp can only play out a blue character, but you can still play it in this deck, right? And then you could just put out Borsellino. And then for this deck, you get rid of a 5 cost, which is much better than a 4 cost, because it would be able to target things like the 5 cost Tashigi. I don't know if the thing is, I don't know if Sakazuki, the 7-cost Sakazuki, would actually be good in a deck like this, just because you don't actually get the extra draw off of your leader effect like you would with Kuzan. So I feel like if you would want to play a card like this, you'd probably prefer to just play Kuzan because he just wants to build up his board and hit with it rather than Sakazuki, which seems like the sort of deck that would want to clear the opponent's board. This is really hard. I wish I had something. Wish I had someone to talk to about this. You play Aramaki. Hold on, let's think about this idea for a little bit. Cause that's something. Sorry, to the guy before that I looked at the wrong GARP. Because there's so many Navy searchers, it feels like a bit of a waste to not run Navy top end. Maybe you don't even run this. Aramaki is something to consider. Stage isn't banned. I wonder. Let me. They're not called Marineford? I don't know. Oh, HQ. I wonder if you need this though. It's like it never hurts, but I think list card largely comes down to what thresholds you need to meet. What if you went Celestial Dragons? Just run a bunch of events that can get rid of those things like Boohoo so like Hound Blaze, you just reduce their cost like crazy and only kill them with your leader. That might be possible in OP13, is it not? Maybe I should try that. Yeah, that sounds kind of strong though. I'll give that a try sometime. Celestial Dragon Sakazuki in OP13. Yeah, Masable's a card for sure. It's one of those things that largely comes down to a bit of the meta. There's too many cards to put into this deck, though. That's always kind of been the issue. 8-cost Isho. I feel like if you're running the Scarp package, you might not be able to afford to put in the 8-cost Isho. I trying to figure out the ratio of these seems like a nightmare. But these have always been kind of like the defaults. Hold on. Let me put in those single clues that people were talking about, though. I really think that there's too many things to choose from here. What's the one cost Sorsnante again? Wasn't it protection of some sort? Uh-huh. Mm-mm-mm. Mm. It very much depends on the meta, I feel. But I haven't... If Kuzan starts to run that card, it's something to consider. Oh, man, dude, I don't know. I think this is far too tricky to actually start to get ratios for, and I feel like I'm going to be clipped out of context and be like, look at this guy's terrible deck building. But yeah, I definitely think that like of the newer cards though, this is the one that would maybe go in. If your leader's multicolored, you can either return a cost 4 or less, which for Sakazuki would be a 5 or less because it doesn't specify original cost, which in this day and age is a bit rare. Or if you have 6 cards or less in your hand, then you draw 2 cards, which is Pirafu, which is the card that Guanrong used to win the championship. So if there's a card that would go in of the newer cards, it'd probably be this one. Amano Murakumo. Amano Murakumo's always been one of those cards that like if you put it in, you put it in at like 1 to 2, and it largely comes down to meta. I don't know. These are just tricky at this point. Um, I don't know which one of these is better, but probably just something like that. Oh, and we have one more spot. But I don't know. Yeah, ma. I don't know. These are all just like speculative. I don't know if you actually would run this scarp. It's just if we were to play around the scarp, this would be kind of the list. I feel like what's more likely would be to do something a bit more standard. Uh, Man, wish I could use Ice Age. Make things so much easier. Oh, sorry, I completely forgot 2Ks. Hold on. You're completely right. Is it is Tashigi the best 2K still? I don't remember, but you know, any 2K works, I would imagine. Then we can start to cut away at things. This is probably a bit better, I would imagine. Uh, oh, it's really tricky to figure out this. T-bone is probably better, yeah. Mm. There's too many good cards. It's tricky. I don't know. I don't know if Laboon goes in. I think if you put in Laboon, you definitely put in Kuzang. But the issue with putting in... Oop, did I just click? Okay, no. The issue with putting in Kuzang is that because Green Zoro is likely going to be a prevalent deck, you don't really have the luxury of being able to place him because Kuzan just goes Tashigi, rest, 8k, 8k at leader, and then you just feel really bad. I don't know. This is extremely rough. Don't screenshot this. This is terrible. But that would be at least a starting point. It's very standard. I don't even know if you run this Porcelino anymore. There's probably better cards. You could even, like, if we're going back to some basics, you could probably take out some of these searchers, put in the 7 cost teach, and kind of build towards the way that Lucci's been playing recently. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm just kind of spitballing right now, but it's an interesting thing to think about because Sakazuki being unbanned means that there's a lot of things that you can try that you haven't been able to try in the past, like, yearish. I don't remember when he was banned, like OP08. It's been a while. Very nice though. Ma, okay. Errata Nami. I don't know if there's enough East Blue cards, to be honest. Oh, the deck's gone. Sorry, guys. I was trying to open it up in a new tab, but I accidentally just clicked it. I don't think that there's enough like good cards to actually make that deck work. So I think we're just in the waiting room for Bandai to make us something good. Oh, Budo being East Blue is quite nice. But yeah, you'd probably just run, the generic stuff, and then you're probably forced to run Usopp, Bittermute, and wherever the other Zeph is. The cards that people tried to put in back in OP03 and they didn't work even back then. So probably would struggle to work now. But I mean, I think it's a fair adjustment. No one enjoyed playing against Nami. Only Nami players enjoyed playing Nami. They never did like the mirror, so it's fine that it's gone. But yeah, a little bit sad that Blue Purple Luffy is gone. What could Blue Purple Luffy look like now that it is dead, though? I think Zoro Sanji could be good. Zoro Sanji, I think, had a pretty good matchup into Blue Purple Luffy, and he loses that, but that just means that he can tech better for the other matchups. I think that applies to a lot of the leaders. 그래. 그래. Zorojuro. Zoro. Yeah, it is. Zorojuro. What's it called in English? That's whatever. It's loading. Don Quixote? Hold on. Actually, let's take a look at that. What cards exist for Don Quixote? My internet's very slow. I hope I'm still connected. Let me see what's here. I definitely think that this version gets much better in PRB02, because if the cards will load, which I don't know why it's taking so long. Wait for this. Oh. It's a blocker, and on play if your leader is multicolored, add 1 dong from your dong rested, or dong deck rested, which is very good. It's Don Quixote Pirates. We could try building Don Quixote Pirates type of deck. But I feel like The archetype kind of starts and ends here. I never really liked the searcher in this deck type, but you may be forced to. It might be maybe makes it more consistent. Uh, I don't know why my internet's dying on me today. Uh, is this the right way to go? Trying to think how you can shore up some of the weaknesses of having no 9 mum or Aramaki. You just run Aramaki instead of Katagiri? Probably not. And I wish that things would load. Senor Pink, I haven't seen people run Senor Pink. I guess like Senor Pink could pick up Giant, but you have to minus Dong to actually use it, and so therefore it's a bit tricky to actually use Senor Pink later on given your leader effect. Oh, this card looks good. Should could put that in. Uh, to actually load through. But yeah, as I'm seeing it, there aren't very many good defensive cards anymore. This Rayleigh, which is not loading, could be good, but it's not necessarily an 8 or 9 dong play because you need to get 10 dong on your or your opponent's field to actually use the effect. Kirosa, Kirosa is probably not bad. Kirosa is not bad, but it's I think if I were to try to load up Kirosa, then we'd probably take another 3 years waiting for the image to load. Let me just think about this version for a second. Probably all the ramp you need. This could be easier in the sim. Yeah. I'm not too accustomed to the sim. That's my bad. Yeah. Huh. I like how I can hover over the card and it makes it really big on the screen. Yeah, the thing is, I think you could go towards the aggressive route. The reason why I was playing like an aggressive version of Blue Purple Luffy was because you had the aggressive tools while also having the defense of being Blue Purple Luffy leader and also having a leader that uses 9 mom very well. And Red Purple Luffy, while he can still use 9 mom, actually he still can't because he's not affected by these bans, which is quite nice. But he didn't really want to let the game go on too long, so he only had one mode. Blue Purple Luffy, even in the aggressive version, had 2 modes. I can see how would Red Purple Luffy fare into this. Oh, no, never mind. I think Red Purple Luffy probably just loses hard to these two. Unfortunately, it's just too much aggression for a 3 life leader that has no survivability. But Red Purple Luffy though, probably run God Thread. There's a card actually for Luffy that I'm kind of excited for OP13, and that's this Rayleigh, which is basically just Usahachi and the 8-cost dragon in a way mixed into one effect, which is very nice, and I'm excited to trying that out. 8-cost Kaido is not out for you guys. In the West. Oh, this one? You could maybe try that. 8-cost Kaido, and then you run a bunch of things like Gum Giant and Blast Breath and just try to stabilize the game through that. You could try that, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's going to be very tricky to make this all work. Uh, mm, yeah, I think you could probably run the Roger. I'm devastated that we lost 8-cost Katakuri too. Because I think, honestly, I did OP13 testing with Blue Purple Luffy without 9-mom, and it still seemed playable. You just play hard towards 8-cost Katakuri. But yeah, now that that's not a thing, it's definitely something that is going to hurt a bit. I don't know. Lots of things to try. I don't think I can confidently put together a list right now because the Don Quixote Pirate package is something I haven't been able to touch too much. But I think that maybe, as chat has been saying, if you're going to play this deck now, this may be the better way. Just get a bunch of Dong, get in a bunch of good counter events. These also, like Thunder Bagua, which is not showing up for me because it's not a 9 or 8 cost. Like Thunder Bagua is easier to use if you have Roshinante. You obviously have like think it's called Gear 2 in English. There's a bunch of like good cards that you can use in tandem with this. You just need to figure out how you're going to deal with some of these higher tier decks. It could still be good though. It's just one of those things you need to test out. Uh, uh, da-da-da. Sorry, I never check how many people are watching the stream, but I hope that you guys are enjoying. I never know what time it is for you guys either. We were thinking, uh, the all blue and I, as in me, Ervoye, and Dionis, were thinking about getting up early and looking at these ban lists stuff. But I remember that for Hervoye, or not Hervoye, I think it's actually a pretty reasonable time in Europe, but in NA, it's pretty rough right now. Mm, yeah. I've basically said what I wanted to say for the people who are stopping in now. As of August 30th, just 10 days from now, at least in Japan, you will need to check the English site to see when that'll be for you guys. But I would imagine it would drop around the same time. We are not going to be able to use Blue Purple Luffy with Purple Katakuri. We're not going to be able to use Blue Purple Luffy with 9 Mom, but you will be able to use these cards on their own, so Purple Katakuri could still be good. Purple Katakuri I didn't mention in this tier list, but one of his good matchups was Blue Purple Luffy, and I don't know how his other matchups go into these decks because he's just a relatively unexplored deck. But potentially good, especially he got some buffs in PRB02 as well. Nami officially dead, which by their own logic, actually let me read through the logic for the people who missed that as well. Um, Blue Purple Luffy as a deck was a deck that they anticipated to ramp their Dong early on and then find explosive power in the late game. But the early game was meant to be its weak point. However, due to 8 cost Katakuri as well as 9 cost Mom being able to ramp into these characters very quickly and play them uh, and manage the board very confidently from very early on in the game, it made it so that this deck had very few weaknesses and way too much defense. So therefore, they are cutting down and making it so you can't use these cards in tandem with each other. So you can't run either of these cards in Blue Purple Luffy, but you're completely free to in other decks. So it's free real estate for decks like Purple Luffy, should the meta adhere to him. Nami, the logic that was given was that the mill version of Nami, where you basically play solitaire against yourself, was too powerful, much more powerful than they expected. I remember actually an interview a couple of years ago where they were talking to the main designer of the One Piece card game that he was shocked that people were running Impel Down All Stars. Oh yeah, Impel Down. Oh yeah, there it is. Impel Down All Stars in Nami just for the trigger effect. And because of cards like this, and because of things like Kabaji and Molji at the time being able to mill your deck very efficiently, they had to, of course, get rid of Kabaji. And eventually, it made it so it's tricky for them to create good blue cards that would actually draw you cards because Nami always existed as something that you had to worry about. I think they actually tried to design around this before by doing like draw 2 cards and put 2 cards to the bottom of your deck, or even if your leader's multicolored, then draw 2 cards and whatnot. They've tried different things like that, but they decided with this set they're just going to rip off the band-aid. Nami's not playable. Now they can design actual cards, which is their logic, and has been replaced with this Nami, which has the exact same effect. If you get to 0 life instead of losing, you win, or 0 cards in your deck, sorry. Then instead of losing, you win, and if you attack and deal damage to the opponent's leader with 1 dong on your leader, then you get to trash 1 card from the top of your deck. But you can only run East Blue type cards in your deck, which means that you can't run the new PRB02 Marco. You can't run the OP13 Otama, you can't run the OP13 Yamato. All these cards that could also Impel Down All Stars, while we're on that topic too. You couldn't run these cards anymore, and you are forced to play the way that God intended. God in this context being Bandai. But Bandai has also given us new crumbs to play with in Sakazuki. Coming back for the first time since OP08 in Japan, potentially OP07 for you guys. Coming off of the ban list, the first card of its kind, Moby Dick still stuck in there. This card potentially has some power, but maybe has been power crept enough that it's no longer a problem in the game. I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem, but I do think there's some pretty interesting things you could do. I do want to try Celestial Dragon, Sakazuki, and Kabaji. Also off the ban list, I think this is largely just because Nami's back and they thought that they wanted to keep the ban list as small as possible. I thought it would have been really funny if they just left Kabaji on the ban list because it's a bit of history. It's one of the first cards that's ever been banned. Animal Kingdom Saka? Maybe. There's honestly a lot of things you could try. Like, the leader effect is so flexible that you're not forced to play towards Navy. It's just historically that's been the correct way to play towards for Sakazuki. But there's so many different ways that you can play the deck now that there's honestly many, many flexible things you could try with him. So that'll be fun for you guys. Maybe I'll think about that a little bit. I'll put together a video or two, maybe trying to figure out this leader, but we'll see. I don't have too much else to say, so maybe I'll read some questions in chat as we start to wrap up a little bit. I hope that whatever time it is for you guys. I saw 1:26 in Europe, 7 a.m. in North America. Relatively decent times for everyone all around. I think Rayleigh's great. Oh yeah, here's just a disclaimer. These aren't ranked within their tiers, and also highly speculative because I just think that, at least in terms of play rate early on, these are going to be the top two, and it's just going to be how the meta shifts around them. I just was not confident enough to drop something into S tier, but if I were to make one bold prediction, I think that Blue Yonami could be quite good. But I just love this deck, so I might just be coping really hard. Blue Yonami to the top. Woo! Zoro, I think is held down by Rayleigh. Yeah, nothing's ranked within these tiers, guys. This is literally just completely random. So like, don't worry. Even if your goat is down here, he's probably. Oh no, now he's gone from the tier list. There he is. He's probably like realistically somewhere higher. Old Man Logan, you remind me of a character from Dark Souls 1. 50 pounds. That's the strong currency in Japan. I mean, in Japan, everything's strong currency. Thank you for all you've done. Keep doing. I love all your 20K. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I hope that everything goes well too. We are inching closer to my goal, and yeah, all the proceeds, ad revenue, and whatnot go to that as well. So if you guys could obviously like, subscribe, I'd appreciate it a lot. Oh yeah, the reason why I put Betty so low is because Betty's one good matchup was Blue Purple Luffy, and she lost her good matchup, and she's gained two pretty abysmal matchups. Both of these decks kind of ruined Betty's day, so it's been a tricky time for her in OP12 as is, with Blue Purple Luffy as like a 20 to 30% play rate consistently, and with him gone, I don't see her being a deck that's really worth talking about. Yeah. Kazan seems likely good. I do think that he struggles into green purple Luffy though, so that's something to consider. The yellow control deck trio seems pretty solid. I'd imagine that NL is probably the weakest of the three now because of the versatility of Nami and Kid. Nami has the most deck building tools and also has a lot of power and card draw that I think can give her the edge over Kid. Don't know. Smoker is still one of those decks you have to consider because it's very powerful, very hard to deal with, has lots of damage, and because Hody wasn't banned, one of the best users of Hody still in the game. Uh, if Green Purple Luffy didn't exist, I'd be fairly confident in Kazung going up, but I think that this matchup was pretty bad. If you guys remember, I brought Kazung to a tournament, tried making that deck work for quite a while after that, because my idea was I would do a follow-up video to that, like vindicating myself after going 0-5 with Kazung, and I just could not, for the life of me, save myself with Kazung, just because even if I could figure out the Blue Purple Luffy matchup, the Green Purple Luffy matchup was difficult for me. But now that you don't have to deal with Blue Purple Luffy, you can tech your deck more towards some of these other matchups, so he might actually end up being better. We'll see. Yeah. Two people in a row talked about Roshinante. Let's talk about Roshinante. And then we'll start to wrap up stream. Roshinante. Roshinante is a deck that's very good into Zoro. It's also a deck that's pretty good into Rayleigh, but Rayleigh does have a Mole Pistol for your 8-cost kid, so if he can use that consistently against you, then that's pretty difficult to deal with. However, Roshinante has access to my favorite card in the game, Sugar, which does help a lot in some of these aggro matchups. So actually, Roshnante could be pretty solid now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know how he would do into some of these mid-tier decks, but he has a winning Zoro matchup innately due to the fact that you can block and protect your characters. He can also turtle behind 8-cost Kid very well. I don't know how he would do into Rayleigh in the face of Sugar and Mole Pistol, but I can see him potentially sneaking in here and there. Not bad deck, actually. Yeah. Purple Katakuri, I just haven't played enough to actually be able to rate it. Same with SC21 Luffy. But there was a time in in OP11 in Japan where SC21 Luffy was used. Oh, that's SC11. But it was mainly just as a blue purple Luffy counter. So it'd kind of currently be in the same boat as Bella Betty, where it struggles into these decks and lost one of its good matchups. Ma. Anyways, if we were to talk about this, we could talk about this forever. As a sign off, let's put Uta into the tier list. Uta as a deck is a bit old, probably not very great anymore. But OP13 gets some film buffs, so potentially some hope for her to rise up in the future. Currently, struggles a bit. Oh, my camera died. So I think that's actually probably a good time to finish the stream then. Because my camera is battery powered, and changing out the batteries, yeah, I didn't think about that when I bought the camera. But I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you haven't seen the ban list, it's in the description below. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to wait for confirmation on when it's going to drop on the English side. I hope you guys enjoyed. I would have zoomed it in on my face at the very end to say goodbye to you guys, but I appreciate you guys coming. Thank you for all of the love and support that you guys give me. The hate comments make me stronger. They don't actually. They hurt me. But I hope I'll see you guys very soon when I stream next time. Potentially, maybe next time I'll also be talking with the All Blue crew and getting their thoughts on these as well, and we'll try to get that to you very quickly. See you guys very soon. Thank you guys for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you guys again.